fuck is this you just asked?
Indeed.
You didn't ask? So I was taking a nap one day. I just grabbed Reader's Digest from like 1975, and I was reading an article. I fell asleep like mid-sentence.
Sure.
So you have that last sentence like echoing through your head. And I woke up like 20 minutes later, and the magazine was still there.
Right.
So I continued to read, and the sentence completed, but suddenly nothing made sense at all. So I backed up and I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't even right. This is a different article. And I realized what must have happened is while I was asleep, like my thumb moved and some pages flipped.
Oh.
But I thought, what are the odds though that mid-sentence I stopped reading, and then I picked up on another page mid-sentence, and it finished the sentence perfectly, but contextually it was fucked. So after that nap I thought, oh, what if I like chopped up Reader's Digest and mid-sentence switched to another article? The challenge, of course, is to make the sentence make grammatical sense.
Right.
But it's not going to make any fucking sense because each one of these is coming from a different article. And then also the article name and the article pictures, similar thing. I would take an article name and then find a totally unrelated graphic. So that's what we're doing. We're reading my mashup Reader's Digest Mad Libs.
Cool. That sounds great.
Okay. Bye-bye.
The case of the deadly hot peppers. From the November 1977 issue of Reader's Digest.
There are two reasons for learning the language in a foreign country: intellectual challenge and fear of being left out of conversation. I admit to the latter motivation. When my husband
Reports. A mobile snack bar would rush in coffee and sandwiches. When a plane's sitting on the ground, Tunner said, it's going to
go away, but they didn't. And in a desperate attempt to appease them, he did
say yes. He went off toward the driveway to reappear with a lovely flower arrangement. Thank you, I exclaimed. But I'm sorry you had to go to all that trouble. You know how most of these houses have no names or numbers on them, he said. Well, you should see.
The ball, he went 75 yards for a touchdown.
The villagers normally have large families, and they explained their need for an extra house to the authorities by claiming that they need more room for
teenagers who sneak the pill, funny uncles, wives who cook with sherry and drink a fifth before supper, people asking if they should change churches, have another baby,
or play a game. The young are waiting for challenges, and if we challenge them, they will respond.
The stakeout men looked at each other. A detective walked up and pounded on the front door. After a few minutes, the door opened and...
So I made certain the house was free of sweets before I left for town, taking the only car. Imagine my surprise when I returned to find her enjoying a large...
spiritual or emotional merging. There is a casual lovemaking, playful seduction, sex on a purely physical level, and so on. One brings different expectations of intimacies to each
mention of the failed test of their publication.
Ronald lost his vision for about 10 minutes. On recovering, he called his parents out in time to see a
crime syndicate spreading like cancer throughout California. It is
expressing tender sentiments, high hopes, humble prayers. When we debase it, we debase our means of...
the tracheotomy that had to be performed to help her breathe. She wondered if smoke would come out of the hole in her throat when she lit up a cigarette. It did.
Wars have come and gone since then, but Armistice Day has lost much of its meaning. But to anyone traveling through France today,
its rotation fluctuates from one year to another by about a tenth of a second. Science therefore abandoned
reservoirs that capture and store the priceless runoff. From these reservoirs, some of the water is pumped through the mountains to
big people who brought the little people drinks. They were brave, said Ray Bolger. They were not accepted. That made a sad world for
sex, says Dr. Mary Calderon, President of the Sex Information Education Council of the United States. They see it everywhere. Television, newspapers, magazines, movies, in their parents' behavior, and in their peers. No wonder that
America, Britain, and France finally decided to run their own zones of Germany as a single economic unit. In retaliation, on March 20th,
While he was sweeping leaves off the sidewalk in front of Merryfield's pharmacy, Gail's heart stopped. He was 48. Funeral services were set for 1:30 on Thursday. At that time, the town
contains the bones of more than 130,000 men, equal to the whole population of Peoria, Illinois.
According to Christian tradition, bells are an echo of the voice of God, says Father Gallo. And through the rebirth of our bells, God
Could take off my costume and lie down. His costume, buckram covered with leather painted silver, was stiff as cardboard, and he couldn't.
practiced putting his own creative ideas into action. His concept for the now famous fast food chain was not all that big or complicated.
dehydrated potato or flour, 2 ounces of cereal, 1 ounce of sugar, and 17.5 ounces of bread. But now that supplies had shrunk to a trickle.
I asked what the symptoms were, and he told me difficulty swallowing, difficulty with vision, difficulty.
With hardly a murmur anywhere. If it is true there will always be in England, this is one of the reasons why.
And the boys, they too, says Dr. Hoffman, seem to be sexually active earlier. Moreover, boys of today have largely relinquished control of
Appointments to international delegations and to prestigious special committees.
And a miracle, no one died. Through luck, fast action, excellent medicine, quick and effective detective work, death was held off. It
Worked closely with the White House, even calling Carter, urging him to reach specific members who were wavering.
Of course, the conflict is often far more complex than this, but in order to build a basis for intimacy, each spouse must learn to listen to and
Cooperate with task force investigators. Ellen Delia's murder, they said,
if not rectified, could pyramid to disaster. Atomic timekeeping can prevent that.
Frank replied softly, "No, I don't think so." Oh my god. This is the most fun I've ever had in forever.
Contains the bones of almost 130,000 men.
equal to the whole population, oddly, of Peoria, Illinois. Why Peoria? Why do they have to pick the funniest sounding town name in the country? Why is it always Peoria? It's always Peoria.
Stop picking on
Or
Peoria.
Duluth. You know what I mean? Oh my god. Oh god.
I think that's where most of the readers are from.
Oh.
it's not all that big or complicated.
I like Bunny's tail floating by occasionally.
It's perfect.
Thin people who bought the little people drinks.
Big people who bought the little people drinks. Sorry.